Bruce, thanks a million for coming to E-Town.
Absolutely.
Really
Good to see you,
appreciate
Jim.
it, man.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
And before I ask you a couple of questions, I'm going to say this.
Yes.
I've been all over the state of Kentucky in the last 3 years, and I've talked to hundreds of Democrats. And you know, Democrats, we don't always agree on everything, and you can't stereotype a Democrat. But the most of them that I talk to have one thing in common. They want somebody to go to Washington and stand up and fight for them.
I agree.
Are you that person?
No question about it. And anybody who has witnessed, my foray into politics, I come from the private sector. You can imagine what it took to build a company from 3 employees to 62,000 all over the country. A kid from a small, farm in Piner, Kentucky, northern Kentucky, that would operate in 35, 36 states across the country. How could I be successful if I wasn't a fighter? And to me, this would not be, I think, the most difficult fight I've had to deal with in my life. And people ask me, they say to me, well, are you ready for Mitch McConnell? And I always say, is Mitch McConnell ready for me? I think that's more of a defining question, because he really hasn't had to fight someone who is a scrapper and a fighter.
If you win the primary,
yes,
are you going to hold anything back on old Mitch?
At this particular stage of the game, we'll let him set the rules and then we'll play accordingly, because he's the one that's going to have $25 million. So we're just going to have to see how far that money can take him with all that baggage he's got to carry.
Well, are you going anyplace else today here in Elizabethtown?
We've been to the daily newspaper, and we're going to go by the weekly newspaper. And one of our supporters from last time came down to see me here a few minutes ago, and I know this community pretty well. Mike Weaver's a friend, and Mike, I was a big supporter of his when he ran for Congress, and I really do think that he's a great representative for this community. And this is a big election. This is a big election, and you got Bush and McConnell. Look at all the things they've done to hurt this country. They put us in a war that doesn't make a lot of sense, and they promised it was going to lower oil prices. That didn't quite work. They continue to pile on debt. These two have been instrumental in piling on debt, which are basically forfeiting our future. So they can basically deceive people and say, we're for tax cuts, we're for tax cuts. So as a result, we're now approaching, we're beyond 6-7 trillion rather in debt, and we're moving up the ladder more and more. At the same time, 83% of our debt is attributable to the 3 last Republican presidential administrations. We have to get our hands around that, or our children, our grandchildren will pay for it. And you have to have people to ask questions. I grew up on a small farm, built a big company. I was Secretary of Commerce in the John Y. Brown administration that everybody would probably agree was the most successful economic development administration the state's had. I was in the healthcare industry, and I know it's ludicrous. It's just ludicrous that 47 million people don't have their health insurance. And then you look at the farm bill and the agricultural stuff. I understand those areas. I've actually done them with my hands. I have cut tobacco. I have put up hay. I have fed pigs. I have fed cattle. My dad was a pinhooker. From my background to get to where I am, how could I be anything but a fighter? I certainly wasn't a trust fund baby. I wasn't handed anything. I had to go get it myself. This is a moment for a fighter. This is a moment for a fighter.
So you're going to fight if you win the primary?
Anybody who knows me that doesn't believe that, they really don't know me.
And when you go to Washington, D.C., you're going to stand up and you're going to fight for folks like me, for my grandchildren, and for my children.
And for my children and my grandchildren. This is a future for everybody. And it really is a situation where they have decimated Middle America. The last 6 years have decimated Middle America with healthcare costs, with gasoline prices, with what they've done to the dollar, what they've done to our jobs. I mean, really, this is about fighting for Middle America. That's what gets me energized. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've lived the American dream. I went without, we didn't have indoor plumbing for 5 years of my life. And my dad used to say in America, you can go from the outhouse to the penthouse. And I've had that ability, and I've lived the American dream. I want everybody else to have that opportunity. And it offends me the way we've taken away the opportunities from Middle America. And I really want to be the guy that people look at and say, he really did help turn things around. And at least he made the debate happen. And I think I'll do that very well.
Well, I really want to thank you for coming to E-Town and for letting us videotape you. I really appreciate that.
Good. Good.
And looking forward to seeing you again when you come back to Elizabethtown.
Many times, and I'm excited about the general election campaign. I think it's going to be one of those great opportunities to make a change and really something that could really be significant for this state and for this country.
Again, thanks a million.